Hi, it's Paddy Hirsch here at Marketplace, here to talk to you about CLOs, or Collateralized Loan Obligations. Okay, we've seen these in the news recently because collateralized loan obligations are kind of an engine of the economy. And recently Citigroup said that it is going to it's going to put out the first CLO that we've seen in about a year. So it's big news, okay, for the economy. Now, if you look at the phrase collateralized loan obligation, it looks kind of similar, right? We've seen a lot of this before. We take out the word loan, okay, put in debt, so it was a CDO, or put in mortgage, it's the CMO, or a bond, it's the CBO. Okay, so essentially a collateralized loan obligation is a securitization, just like all of these things. So just to remind you how the old securitization works, okay, I'm just going to give you a quick overview of this again. So here's our, take an investor or a manager of one of these CLOs, okay? His name is John, okay, and he wants to create a CLO, a collateralized loan obligation, a securitization instrument. So what he does is he goes out to a bunch of pals of his. These are a bunch of investors, and he says, hey guys, you know you can trust me, can you lend me $10 million? Okay, so these guys put together $10 million, okay, and lend it to John. And John goes out and he buys a bunch of loans, okay, and he puts them into a box, okay. Now these are all loans, like all good loans. These loans throw off an interest, a little bit of interest every month. Say 3% here, 4% here, 5% here, whatever it may be. And at the end of the month, all that interest flows out of the vehicle, which is what they call this. So we're going to make this look like our old model of the champagne bottle. Okay, end of the month, the cork flies off, and the interest, which is pure cash, flows out, and it flows through a capital structure that John has created. Okay, and this looks a bit like a pyramid of wine glasses, like you get at a wedding, you know. So these wine glasses are all set on a nice silver tray. Okay, what happens is the money from these loans flows out, and if everyone's paying their loans or paying the interest on their loans, it flows out through the capital structure and collects in the bottom, which is called the equity tranche. Okay, so what happens is each of these parts of the structure is rated. Now clearly, the top glass is least likely to end up empty. It's most likely to get filled. Therefore, there's very little risk if you have this. So it's rated AAA, and it's priced accordingly. You get, say, 1% interest. Next one is AA rated, a little more risky, 2% interest. Next is a little more risky, BBB, say 5% interest. And then the last tranche is most risky of all, BB, say 7% interest. Because, and the reason this is riskier is because, say, a couple of these loans, or the people who've borrowed this money, or say a couple of these loans default, and there's no interest being paid, it means that less money is going to flow out through the capital structure, so it's more likely that these lower tranches won't get filled up. And essentially what John does is he takes this $10 million, okay, and he's bought all these loans with it, and he apportions this part of the capital structure up so that each of his investors gets a little slice depending on how much risk they want and how much exposure they want. They get a little slice, each of them gets some securities based on this model. Okay, and that's the way securitization worked. So the most important thing about the CLOs is to ask where these loans come from. Okay, because these aren't like, in most securitizations, the things that go into the bottle are the whole item, like whole mortgages in the CMO, in a collateralized mortgage obligation. You know, whole bonds go into the bond obligation. Whole credit cards into the asset-backed security. But in this case, or whole credit card obligations, I should say. But in this case, they're little slices of the loan. And so how does he get hold of these little slices? Okay, well the way this works is through a syndication process. So, you know, a couple of years ago, or say up until very recently, in fact, even now, there are lots of, say, burger bar owners, okay, who are out there. They are looking for money. They've been going to the banks and saying, please, please, lend us money because we want to expand into Illinois, or we want to expand into China. You know, these are the guys that they say they want to expand. They say they want to build new burger bars, hire people, make money. But it's been very, very difficult to get money out of the banks. The reason is because, one of the reasons is because the banks look into the future and they say, well, we don't like the look of the economy, or we don't like the look of your business, so we're not going to lend you money. But it's not just the banks that are looking to the future and seeing that, it's also guys like John. So John doesn't want to have a bottle that's filled up with loans, with dodgy loans. Could go bad in a bad economy. He wants to fill, he's only going to want to fill his bottle up when he thinks that, you know, the economy is about to improve. So now John has created this CLO. Suddenly there's some demand for these little bits of loans. So now, let's say here's Fred or Fred's Burgers, okay? Fred's Burgers very happy, all right, because he's gone out to the bank, and the banker, here he is at the banker at JP Morgan. He said, all right, yes, I'd be happy to lend you some money. In fact, I'll lend you $1 billion. Okay, here's that banker at JPM. He's going to lend him $1 billion. And what JP Morgan does is he takes that loan and he breaks it up into little bits, because he doesn't want to lend $1 billion himself. He doesn't want that kind of exposure to one company. And also, he doesn't want to have $1 billion in loans bang on his balance sheet, because then he has to have more capital, okay, more cash in his accounts because of capital adequacy requirements. So what Mr. JP Morgan does is he breaks this thing up into little bits. He looks for other lenders in his syndicate. This is called a syndication. Okay, so he creates a syndicate of lenders, and those include other banks. Okay, they include funds, hedge funds, and the like, and they also include people like John, people who create these CLOs. So John gets one of these little bits. Okay, once the syndication occurs, John gets this little, because he's in the syndicate, gets a little bit of this loan, pops it into his bottle with a whole bunch of other loans from other borrowers like Fred. Okay, so he's now got this bottle full of little loans. And you can see that how John is now, why it's so important that the collateralized loan obligation market improves. Because if there are lots of people like John, that means there are lots of bottles out there. And lots of people like John going to the banks, come on, we need to fill our bottles. Make loans out to these guys so that we've got, stuff to put in our bottles and we can make money down the line. Now JP Morgan says, okay, well, I can certainly find people who want money. There's lots of those people out there. So it can originate loans, agent, as it calls, agent these syndicates, and funnel this money through the system and into these CLOs. Of course, there's a problem, because John and indeed JP Morgan are looking into the future and saying, what's the future going to be like? And the only reason that John is recreating these CLOs, is starting these CLOs again, is because he thinks the economy is going to be good. He thinks the economy is going to be good, these guys are going to make money, which means I'm going to make money. Of course, the risk is that if the economy doesn't improve, say we go into a double dip, and we start to see more and more and more and more and more of these loans going bad in a bad economy, well, it means that there's going to be less money going through here, so it's bad news for these guys. It means John is going to be very reluctant to do more CLOs, so it's bad news for these guys, because they're not going to be able to get loans from the banks, and that's going to leave everybody in the entire system, including us here, very badly, needing a drink. Okay. All right, that's better. Okay. All right, okay. I'm ready? Oh, my glasses. Sorry. Okay.